Hey, what's up, YouTube world? It is your girl here, the Venusian Bull, and I am back with another video. So what we're going to be doing in this series of videos is we're going to be discussing the planets in the 8th house. Yes, I know a lot of people have been waiting for this house. Anything that has to do with the 8th house, Scorpio, Plutonian things, people are always curious. People are always interested. They always want to see, the mystique of this energy. So we're going to be discussing planets in the 8th house, and I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently, as I'm going to have an introductory video to get through with all of like the kind of housekeeping details and everything that the 8th house contains, because I'm going to go very much into depth, pun intended, with the 8th house as it pertains to the planets and things like that. And I didn't want to have to say the same things over and over at the beginning of the video like I usually do, because it's a lot of information and a lot of knowledge that I'm going to be dropping on y'all. So yeah, there will be a description in the comment box of the actual timestamp of when I get to that planet in as it pertains to the 8th house. So don't worry, if you've seen 3 of these, you can skip through them if need be and go just straight to, sun in the 8th, Mars in the 8th, moon in the 8th, whatever. Okay. All right. So let's discuss the 8th house a little bit. Okay. So I also want to kind of put a trigger warning on these videos, because the 8th house deals with a lot of kind of taboo topics, the things that we don't really, want to discuss, the things that are buried beneath the surface and things like that, such as sex, such as death, anything that's taboo, and that could be deemed taboo or beneath the surface. That could even mean astrology or tarot or numerology or any type of occult like studies and mediumship, voodoo, hoodoo, all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? Especially when it comes to kind of like worshiping like ancestors and the dead and things like that. The 8th house has to deal with death, so we may be talking about demons and spirits and all of that type of stuff. So again, trigger warning. And this is the trauma house. A lot of the times I always say that Scorpio is the trauma queen, while Leo is the drama queen. So 8th house energy, there's always going to be some type of trauma that needs to be kind of overcome, but you're not going to escape drama. You're not going to escape trauma having 8th house energy. It's kind of inevitable that you will experience certain things. So I went through the basics: sex, death, anything that has to deal with trauma, transformation, regeneration. This is a very transformative placement. You're always changing, always transforming, and it's usually in major ways. This also has to deal with other people's money, as the 2nd house deals with earned income and money that you earn. The 8th house deals with other people's money. So this isn't necessarily money that you work for. This is money that you get from an inheritance, or like spousal support, or like child support, or like a life insurance policy, or something along those lines. And the 8th house also represents debt that you owe. So not only other people's money, but money that you owe to other people. So creditors, like bankruptcy, all of that stuff that we hate, really, right? I also like to think of the 8th house. The 8th house is kind of about turning trash into treasure. It's very much a purging thing. It's about, getting rid of garbage, and things like that, because Scorpio, which rules the 8th house, actually represents, for lack of a better word, excrement. You know what I'm saying? It represents, the waste out of your body. So it could be like literal waste or like figurative waste that you're kind of doing away with. And that kind of goes along with the transformative aspect of the 8th house. And as a reminder to keep in mind that you need to take account the sign that's on the 8th house cusp, as well as the aspects that the planet is making with any other planets in your chart, because this may modify the energy that you are experiencing in the 8th house. So make sure that you take heed of that. Sometimes I state this periodically in other videos, but I want to get this in the first video, the intro video, so that everybody knows that the characteristics that I state for the planet, that I'm speaking about may vary based off of other variables in your chart. So I want to make that very clear, especially when it comes to, the eighth house, because it's so transformative and it's so, intense, it's so in depth that it can mean so many different things. And speaking of intensity and depth, it has to deal with that. It has to deal with intimate bonds, close bonds. It's the next step up from the seventh house, which is like more like commitment and marriage. And the eighth house is that intimate bond that it's not a you and I, it's a we thing when it gets to the eighth house. So it's that as well. And it's, deep, it's about deep connections, and it's about researching, it's about investigating to get down to the bottom and the depths and, the oceans of things. This is a water house. So you have to remember this is an emotional house. People forget that Scorpio is a water sign sometimes, I think, and emotional, because their exterior can be so, you know what I'm saying? It could be very resting bitch face, but remember that this energy needs to feel deeply, like within the depths of their soul. They need to feel right down into their gut. So they need to feel deeply. This house may be prone to experiencing a lot of pain as well, pain and trauma. And usually, in a lot of instances, that's something that people who have this energy, they actually like. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm going to get into the planets in the eighth house. So stay tuned. See ya. Hey, okay, so in this video, we are going to be discussing Venus in the eighth house, okay? I was actually really excited about this particular placement. I was excited to talk about it and things like that. So without any further ado, we're gonna get into Venus, okay? Just remember that Venus, it represents love, it represents relationships, it represents your self-worth and your self-esteem. It represents what you like, what you enjoy, and what you're attracted to, okay? And also Venus in the eighth house is similar to having Venus in Scorpio or having Taurus or Libra on the eighth house cusp, okay? So just to kind of kickstart with Venus in the eighth, because the eighth house is about these intimate and like personal bonds, and really like magnetic bonds where you're one. It's not you and I, it's we type of energy. This is a very intense placement for Venus. It's probably the most intense because Venus is a very like light energy typically, but when you put it in the eighth house, it makes it a little bit heavier. And it makes that person's Venus a lot less shallow, a lot less surface level. So this energy is really looking for those deep, penetrating connections when it comes to relationships. This position is not about any type of like one night stand or like, friends with benefits and stuff like that. Like they are very secure. I'm sorry, that's not the right word. They're very overprotective of their heart and who they give it to, who they give their love to. So they have to really, love you and feel like you are loyal to them for them to really let go. But once they do, child, they are in it. They are completely all in, completely engrossed in the relationship. This energy may be a little clingy, but it's also kind of scary. This is very much the energy if I can't have you, nobody else can. You know what I'm saying? So this can definitely be, if you get with somebody else, if you cheat on me, like you dead motherfucker, like type of energy. Like this is very much crime of passion energy. I may have to look up OJ Simpson's chart to see if he got Venus in the eighth child. This is that type of energy. But on the brighter note, this is really about deep connection when it comes to relationships, real intimate bonding, really exploring the level of intimacy and things of that nature. It's not just about sex. It's about feeling every single part of that person and understanding, their body and their being, and connecting on a real spiritual, deep level. This is a real deep position and placement for Venus. This makes Venus think. This makes Venus very much always craving those deep penetrating relationships. Another thing about this position when it comes to relationships is that this energy is all encompassing. It's very all or nothing. This is not like energy where you can have a little here, have your cake and eat it too. No, this is all encompassing. This is like, if you're with me, or are you with me, or are you not? Because if you're not, you need to just get to stepping right now. Because but can you handle me? Like, baby, can you handle this? I don't think you can handle this. Like Venus in the eighth, they will tell you, I don't think you can handle this. I don't think you can handle all of this intensity, all of this, like just deep penetrating energy that I'm providing, that comes from trauma, particularly as it pertains to relationships and things of that nature. So yeah, this is somebody who maybe even felt like they fell in love at a very young age, maybe like teenager or something like that. And they may have felt like they were in love, but they were really being controlled and taken advantage of. Also, be sure like your partners that you get, because this is also considered one of the relationship houses. So if you happen to have Taurus or Libra on the eighth, or Venus in the eighth, you may be definitely attracting that energy. So you may constantly meet people that are Tauruses or Libras or have heavy Venus energy and things of that nature. Make sure that you're being very discerning. Look past the charm and the good looks and everything, because they're going to be fine. Because, Venusian energy is fine. You fine, and they're going to be fine. But you kind of got to be able to look past that. You know what I'm saying? Because it can get a little hazy, you know what I'm saying? And this is somebody who definitely enjoys sex. They definitely feel like that's a very intimate part of the relationship, and they want it to always, be pleasing and reciprocal and, pleasurable and things like that. This is not a boring sex partner. This is not somebody who is about the same old, rigmarole when it comes to sex. Oh, just missionary. Oh, you just get on top of me, a couple pumps and done. No, this is like sensuality. This is like extended foreplay. And a lot of the foreplay has to deal with touching all over the body. So this is very sensual mixed with sexual and things of that nature. So, if you dealing with somebody with Venus in the eighth, they're going to take you to highs of orgasms that you haven't ever seen. You know what I'm saying? So they know what they're doing. And more often than not, because this is the energy of the eighth house, they explored sex at a young age, and they were able to, pick up things from a very young age, very much interested in sex at a very young age. Also very much interested in the dynamic of relationships, and the deep parts of relationship. Like, what is the root cause of the issues? Like, this is a position that would make a very good, like, marriage counselor, because they wouldn't be afraid to go there. You know what I'm saying? This wouldn't be surface level marriage counseling. Like, they're really going to ask, and also the eighth house has to deal with other people's money. They were like, what if this person, lied to you about their finances, and they allegedly came in the relationship with XYZ amount of money, but they didn't actually really have it, and they didn't own this business. And you come to find out that you have to put your name on the deed of the house, and you have to put the credit cards in your name and all the bills in your name because their finances are fucked up. What would you do if that was the case? Would you be able to sustain a relationship or something like that? I just came up with that off the top of my head. Maybe I should be a marriage counselor. No, I've never been married. So I also don't think that you should be a marriage counselor if you've never been married. Like, I think that, I don't know, maybe you can, I guess, especially if you have Venus in the eighth. You know what I'm saying? You can connect on those deep levels, but I feel like it has to come from some type of experience. And the good thing is that usually people who are giving advice that have eighth house energy, they've been through it. They've been through the tough, the real traumatic aspects of it. So it's like they know to a certain extent. So like I would say, even if they're not married or they haven't been married before, they could definitely, understand that. They could definitely relate. I think that this is definitely would encounter multiple relationships or multiple marriages. This isn't necessarily the sleep around kind of person. However, because you crave, like, I mean, you lust after these intimate partnerships, these intimate bonds. Everybody that you meet, you may think that they're like this deep, like kindred spirit, like they're your soulmate, like your twin flames. You may always think that that is that energy that you're getting because you want to completely engross yourself in that person. Of course, you have your wall up and everything because, eighth house energy, Scorpio energy still has their wall up, but you want everyone you meet, you want that person to be the last person, but they're not. And you tend to think that sex is going to like open up this portal to being able to see their soul. And that doesn't always happen. More often than not, that's not the case. So it's like you can't use sex to be able to open them up, to be able to see their vulnerabilities and open that portal. Maybe you can sometimes, but you can't expect that. You have to do the work and really try to get to know how deep they really are. Because if they're really just shallow and they don't have anything interesting about them or anything extraordinary, that's going to turn you off. So it will kind of have defeated the purpose of you having sex with them. Because ultimately, even if the sex is good, if you are not, and this is kind of past mental stimulation, if you are not spiritually and deeply connected to this person on a real, like, emotional plane and spiritual plane, it's not going to last. Like, you may have some good sex a couple of times. You can be like, no, this person's not deep enough for me, or they just simply like can't handle me. Like, I almost had my, my Kundalini experience, and I feel like I can't even talk to them about it because they're not even on that spiritual plane with me. Like, you gotta find something. You have to find people who are like-minded. This is very Venus, who are similar, who you are compatible with. Like, Venus is, is about compatibility and things like that, and also attractiveness, but also, compatibility. So you have to make sure that they are just as deep, or at least at the same level as deep as you, or maybe even deeper. So that way, that they can handle your crazy or your deepness, or however you want to explain it. Definitely, as it pertains to death, obviously, unfortunately, this could be the death of a significant other, or it could also be the death of a prominent woman in your life, not your mother, not like the moon, but like a prominent woman in your life. It could be someone who you collaborated with, because the eighth house has to deal with collaboration, or just somebody who may have been like a mentor or a friend to you. Just a prominent woman may, unfortunately, see their untimely death with, Venus in the eighth, or not even untimely, just death. You can definitely inherit money from a spouse, obviously, and or life insurance and things like that. And you could definitely see the death of a spouse. This is definitely kind of like a multi-marriage type of position. Remember, they're always seeking those deep connections, those deep bonds. So the dating phase is like real short. Like, when they feel that connection, they're gonna want to seal the deal because they don't want you to have anybody else. You know what I'm saying? They are going to take their time. Like, they're not going to rush into the relationship. But when they feel that there's that connection, they're going to want to marry you and, kind of seal the deal and things like that. And, unfortunately, this could be considered a death of a spouse. Like I said before, on the darker side, this could be a crime of passion. Like, you could be the one to kill your spouse and stuff like that. Maybe you plan that shit to get the insurance money. Very Dateline, very Forensic Files, but that is also very Venus in the eighth house. Yes, it is. If you want to know what type of person would do that purposely, it could be Venus in the eighth house. Okay, that doesn't mean that if you have this placement, you're going to kill your spouse or anything like that, but it could. Also, when it comes to transformation, you are always transforming through relationships. Every relationship that you have, you leave a different person than the last. You never start out a new relationship the same way as you ended the previous relationship. So it's all about this transforming through relationships and understanding relationships with different people and understanding different people's energies and things like that. That is what transform you. That is what causes you to evolve. So you have to have relationships with other people. And this is not just, romantic relationships. This is just, this could be friendships, really close bonds with friends and certain family members and things like that. But you need to develop those close personal relationships in this lifetime, because that will enable you to really transform and to really grow. And unfortunately, you may lose some of those friends. Some of those friends you may lose to death, and some of those friends you may lose, or relationships you may lose because, they betrayed you, and because, they lied to you. So you can't deal with them anymore. You can't deal with that energy. But what it did give you is the ability to transform and to evolve. So you're always like, I mean, it can seem like a change up to other people, just like visually, like maybe you were dating, a dude with dreads and like a rasta, and he smoked all this weed all the time and stuff like that. And that was your mode for 3 years or whatever. And then you turn around and you start dating this like more like clean cut, fresh shaven, comedian or something like that. Just something completely opposite. And it's not so much the fact that you don't like the other type of guy anymore. It's just like you've evolved and you want maybe something less dark, so to speak. So you want, maybe you want to somebody who's funny and humorous and things of that nature. But not only are you transforming the relationships, you're transforming in the types of people that you're with. Like, these people are always different in some type of way. But just be careful of the controlling aspect, because with Venus in the eighth, you could be the controlling person in a relationship, but you can also attract that energy. You can attract very, stalkerish type of partners and people who can be abusive. This is very like abusive domestic violence type of relationship. Like, this is almost that type of relationship where you're literally fighting with your partner, like physically, and then like it turns into sex. And that like low key turns you on. Like, remember, Venus in the eighth is not like a typical Venus. This is like dark Venus. This is like, hardcore Venus and things like that. So you may enjoy a lot of pain during sex, or a very like difficult argument during sex. You want this traumatic type of experience when it comes to relationships. There was an episode of Scandal where Olivia she was talking to Edison, this guy who was proposing to her. Not at that time, but he had already given her a ring. But she was basically telling him that she doesn't accept the proposal because basically being with him would have been too neat, too perfect, too I's dotted and T's crossed. She was like, nah, I want that painful. I want that devastating. I want that extraordinary kind of love. Yeah, that's Venus in the eighth house. Okay, like, they don't want it to be too easy. Like, if it seems too good to be true, or it seems too easy, like, they don't really want it. They want there to be a little fight. They want there to be a little jealousy. They want there to be a little crazy, because I mean, if there's not that, then where can you draw from for deep connection? Like, this is how some of these people think, and it doesn't have to be all like that traumatic. You know what I'm saying? Some people are just too shallow for them, and it can never work because they're about these deep connections and things like that. But some people with Venus in the eighth house really want trauma. They won't say it, they won't admit it, and it's not really what they want. They want a deep connection, but some people get it confused with trauma. Like, if I'm feeling pain or if I'm feeling hurt, that's like real love. You know what I'm saying? Real love is not being happy all the time. That's not realistic. That's kind of how Venus in the eighth house may operate. So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind about this position. I would say channel this position into finding, really, extraordinary, life-changing, transformative type of relationships that are really going to make you be a better person, that is operating on that really high octane type of vibe, because the eighth house has that ability. Like the best of the Scorpio and the best of the eighth house is really a great energy to be around. So that is the type of transformation that you want. That is the type of extraordinary relationship and experience that you want to have. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to just be dealing with trauma just for the sake of dealing with trauma, and abuse, or, and things like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to have to deal with that. You could, just one thing, you could also attract people who are very prominent, very wealthy, have a lot of power, and have a lot of influence. Okay, so I wanted to get that little nugget in there. But that is all I have for Venus in the eighth house. I have been rambling. Y'all could talk about Venus all goddamn day, y'all. But I'm going to leave it at that, and let me know if you have this placement, if this resonated with you. And also, if there's anything that I may have forgotten to state, make sure that you put that in your comments. Put your Venus in the eighth house comments in your stories there. I want to read them, and I want to, respond to them and see what's going on in this crazy romantic Venusian eighth house kind of thing that we have going on. So I'm very curious to hear about the relationship aspects of that. So yes, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.